I'm certain he probably, you know what we can do, because I was looking for the clip proper, but for some reason I couldn't hear it, but I'm imagining that wasn't the problem. So anyway, family, make sure you like this video as you come in, share it, like it, and let's be ready for a conversation. And I ask that we come with our minds and our hearts open, and know that we come in this space, in this place, in this time, as a means of bringing about clarity and healing. So, family, I'm going to introduce you to my dear brother, Brian Furr. Speak to the people, brother Furr.
Hello, all. My name is Ndugu Fur, as I am in the NJIA Rites of Passage, and I would like to just contribute thoughtful dialogue to this extremely important topic. I'm appreciative to be a part of the conversation, and I thank you for inviting me onto the platform.
All right, brother Fur. And then we have my dear brothers over here. One of y'all can introduce yourselves to the people, family.
I'll go first. Brother Parish, or through NJIA and Dugu Parish. This is my first time being on a live stream. I'm excited to learn, to share what I have, and to also be open and receiving from whatever is brought to the group from the chat, from anyone else who's interested in sharing and participating, and from my fellow brothers here as well. So it's a pleasure, and I'm happy to be here.
I appreciate it.
Greetings, family. Peace and power. This is Ndugu Carlos, also a part of the NJIA Rites of Passage. It's a pleasure to be here. I mean, unfortunately, it's not so much of a pleasurable topic, but I am honored to be here amongst my brothers and amongst those who are willing to chime in to talk about this much needed dialogue that we need to have, centering around some of the recent situations that have had that we've been able to witness in the very recent recent time. So again, I thank you all for joining us. Thank you, and Walimu, Dr. Winkler, for having me, and looking forward to some dialogue that maybe we can get to a remedy, some kind of understanding.
All right, so yeah, okay. They just gonna sit here and be quiet. They're very disciplined. Look, we need some tap dancers in the room, y'all. We need some tap dancers in the room. I'm trying to get Proper up. So, who knows anything about some of what's going on before we get Proper? But I think Proper can actually. I just want to hear what he has to say. But I'm trying to get this. Hey, Proper, see if you can chime in. Let me see if I can hear you. Okay. I can't hear you, Proper.
Mic check.
Oh, we can hear you.
Okay.
We can hear you. Okay, cool.
Okay, cool.
Let me ask you, have you done any background on any of these travesties that's taken place in our community as of recent?
I have, yeah. I mean, I've been trying to follow the news reports, and I've been trying to follow the commentary about the incident. I'm not gonna say that I got everything, down packed to a factual science, but I have been trying to follow it and look things up and at least get like all of the salient facts together.
Okay. As I appreciate that. So basically, I actually was unaware of much of what's been going on until recently, today, and we've been having conversations about male, female, black male, black female relationships and just family in general. And this is one of the topics I wanted us to discuss, and I want us to discuss. I see Brother Curtis is in the building. You please feel free to come in, family. We do have the link in the chat. Those of you can join this panel. If you want to, you can join the panel as well. I'm trying to get these levels together. But I must say, someone told me that Roland Martin had a broadcast recently pertaining to the tragedy that took place in Fairfax. I think it's Fairfax County, Virginia. And as I listened to it, he started spewing out some statistics, or one statistic, one stat that just, to me, I think, poorly framed what's going on here. And I want us to really deal with this as delicately as possible. And I often ask us, what frames are we using to examine these situations? And many times, I think we have to be real careful when we are examining and also blaming people and actually what the deficits in our community. Like I think we have to be real clear on the frame where we're coming from. Roland Martin, I have no idea where he gets this statistic from, but he says 96% of domestic violence occurrences happen from men in the direction of women. I don't even know why that is. I mean, I guess I understand why one would bring that up in the middle of these tragedies, but I also think it is very problematic. And I think we have to be real careful. And please, you don't have to agree with me, but I think we have to be real careful in really looking at this thing just from this pure gender-based analysis. It's so easy to jump to a gender-based analysis because different people from different genders or sexual backgrounds are involved. But that really makes things a little muddy. I'm not saying that shouldn't be a part of the analysis, but it cannot be the full analysis. I think that's problematic. Because one, when you make gender the factor, it means that you know that the gender is the independent variable, that variable that is responsible for the change that we see. That variable that says because they are black men, this is why this happened. And that is literally what I'm seeing in chat boards. That's literally what I'm seeing on the posts. But Roland Martin and others who, and I understand why we're hurt. I understand why we're frustrated. I understand why we feel disappointed. I understand why we feel let down. But to me, that's poor science. Because you don't even have enough information to say gender was that variable. And I'm not saying gender is not a variable, but it does not have to be the variable that is responsible for what happened in this case. It just happens to be that this person is also a male. I think that you take that into account. But that doesn't mean that is the ultimate reality and why this happened. And I think that we have to be really good at looking at factors and variables outside of that, because these systems have us looking at each other in ways to say that is what men do and that is what black men do. And I get it. Even us, we want to hold our brothers accountable as we should. But at the same time, that is not enough. What y'all say?
Well, I think, and I was looking up a few of those. I was looking at some of the statistics, and sometimes I just think that it may get, when you have something directly that is, put in front of us, like these situations that we're witnessing now. Of course, it is high, it's trauma no matter what, but it's this high energy, that's going on right now. Like it's a high awareness is what I'm saying. And, I think a lot of times the quickest I'm just responding to the Roland Martin thing. I was like, the response is to have these numbers and to have these quotes that gonna jump out there on this social media type of thing. But I do think that that's a dangerous thing. But I do believe that it has to be something deeper to try to get to the bottom of, like, or to intervene in what is going on in these these social circles as far as it relates to like our partners, our relationships and things like that. I mean, it's a touchy subject because, I mean, I can speak because I have witnessed something. Well, I don't even know how to say it, but it is actually it's happened in my family. So I'll basically say it that way. And it's tough, it's still affecting a lot of people. And everybody's looking for answers. They want to know why. And that's something that we can't get out of our head. Like we're going to try to search for why. And sometimes we go to these different levels to try to search for why. And we just put those things on those things, without reasoning all the factors that it can be. So I understand that. But
I think though, it's not just that it's coming out of, like, we're searching for the why without already some indoctrination being in us.
True.
You see what I'm saying? Because I think we talked about this yesterday to some degree in a circle yesterday, that what happens is we've already been fed that we are the why. I'm talking about that black men are the why.
Yeah.
So it only takes incidents like these, and don't let them happen in what's it called, in a procession. Don't let them happen one after another. And in fact, guess what? Black men and men in general and people in general ain't never stopped killing each other. Let's keep that a buck. These are high profile cases. See, look, do you think nobody got killed 2 days before these people? See, I think that we think that nobody was getting murdered like 3 days before then. It just happens to be this is the governor, former lieutenant governor.
And then when it's a high profile case, like you said, a lot of cases, like this domestic violence thing, this happens a lot. And I can tell you, like, the law is not really helpful as well, because they're not on the side of victims, whether they be male or female. But I definitely I've seen it with my own eyes where even to a point where I see somebody trying to come and put in a protective order or peace order against somebody, and because they don't have the address or the person, they can't serve the person, then it's over with. They just they just let it be. You understand what I'm saying? And it's like, as the law, as a person, as a victim, whether they male or female, like, it's not your job to go and try to find this person, make sure they stay away from you, and make sure that you're protecting yourself on that end. The law will tell you not to do that. They'll say, hey, don't be a police, don't take this in your own hand. But that, like I said, even in that system, is not available to help people. And I'm gonna say, like, I will say Black people. Like, I think in people's mind, we're violent people anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see something like that, it's almost like those Black people are violent anyway. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And I think that when I appreciate that, for I really do, because I've been in some situations, man, and they didn't make sure my joint was popping. You know what I mean?
Appreciate you.
Yeah. So, oh man, I think it's so complex.
Yeah.
And any approach that doesn't utilize care and complexity is problematic.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And any approach that tries to point fingers back and forth is a part of the problem.
Yes,
Anybody who says this is done because of Black men or Black women, or Black women do this, so this is what happens, and not account for the systems that we find ourselves in. The system, and I think you brought up something really powerful. But I also want to say these systems, even before it gets to that point, don't serve us. The system that makes us and has us feeling oppressed don't serve us. These systems that aren't working for us have us under duress. And the fact that people are asking this question, whether or not is mental, okay, the title, Mental Health versus Patriarchy in Black Family Tragedies. And this question has come about whether this is Black mental health. I mean, not Black mental health. Yeah, Black mental health, whatever it is. And some people are saying, I hear some people in the mental health community saying even that you could never blame murder on mental health. I would argue that there's never a time that you can take mental health out of the equation. So it's the like, how do you take it out of the equation? And if people say there's no diagnosis for murder, there's no look, you can make one up tomorrow. It's not like you need a diagnosis of the things that people put together. Like, you don't have to have a diagnosis to understand that somebody is under mental duress and under stress. And you don't have to have a clinical diagnosis of depression and so on and so forth. Brother Ferg, go ahead. I see you.
I didn't mean to cut you off or anything. I absolutely agree. I think that you can't separate murder or violence or even aggression and mental health. It all falls in the same category, because mental health is a catalyst that will create those situations.
Mm-hmm.
When people can better navigate their mental and emotional health, they'll better be able to survive situations, better be able to navigate different situations, neighborhoods, whatever it may be. And maladaptive coping skills is, I think, at the root of the mental health thing. So I also wanted to just mention, just like grounding the conversation in like an NJIA kind of way,
Mm-hmm.
just like fully understanding aspects of what we're talking about, because I just heard about this this tragedy where 8 young lives were lost, and you talk about it from the violence perspective, like what's happening at the but people don't just, I'm a father myself, people don't snap over like in an instant. There's got to be signs and signals and moments where there's vulnerability and help that leads up to that point. Because if anyone close to the victims, the family and the survivors say that this was out of the blue, that seems that I don't know the situation that well, but that couldn't possibly be the situation, And I think the part of the conversation is, how do you notice the signs and symptoms and be able to see the red flags and see the telltale signs to go and get the support, and then figure out where the support is to be able to have the support. And I also really appreciate aspects of what you were putting down, Dr. Winkler, aspects of what you were putting down, and do Carlos. And I'm thinking about the falsification of African consciousness, where Dr. Amos Wilson really argues that there's propaganda against the Black family as a central tool to maintain European dominance or white supremacy, which I think is an important topic, because statistics can be used in ways that can skew statistics can be skewed. Statistics can be skewed. You can kind of adjust them, and even how data is collected. We got to look into how the data is collected, how the data is being populated and looked through, because even if the data is not being collected in the right way through the population, and the right surveys are not being collected, because we I think it was even a topic we had mentioned that we talk about the statistics of domestic violence, which is a very serious thing. I'm not downplaying it by any means, but there's a large statistic of men who don't claim domestic violence. So if they aren't reporting it, or even women who don't report it, or in same-sex couples that don't report domestic violence, if you don't have the full picture, many times that data comes in skewed. So I think just fully understanding what's happening, looking at it from a nuanced perspective, an NJIA perspective is a both and perspective. It's not black and white. It's not right or wrong. It's like looking at all the different nuances to kind of fully understand what's happening. And then we can kind of like start the conversation on what we could do about it from that point.
Yeah, I think our dear brother Curtis Warren says here, he says these events must be evaluated from a mental health framework, gender and power dynamics frameworks, and white supremacy systems has failed us. I kind of agree with what he's saying, but I think some of what he said falls short. I think we should look, I would argue we need to turn this around a bit and not exclude white supremacy outside of the framework. Like, we need to look at this through from a power analysis. We need to have first and foremost a power analysis through systems and structures. We need to look at this on how people are being impacted to feel certain ways, to think certain ways first and foremost, to feel and then act out certain behaviors. But again, I want to be clear that we must know that men and women are hurting each other daily, and you won't hear about it on the news. So to hear about 3 things in a row is not something that wasn't already happening. But in our minds, the media cycle and media has a way of imprinting messages on our minds at right times for the very reasons. And it happens. Look, we can't deny these are high profile cases. It's not every day someone who used to be the governor does a thing like this, and then you have the person who does this to their family. That happens way more, but it just happens to be it follows that, right? So now we feel like the world is falling apart. No, the world was already falling apart. And what I mean is things have already been bad. And so, as Brother Fur was speaking about, and I'll turn it over to you, Brother Parrish, we in NJIA, we like to look at things through a way of understanding. And how do we understand this? And maybe we could talk about that after Parrish goes. What is something we've already kind of talked about that a bit, but through a disciplined framework, as a means or frameworks to help us conceptualize these things, because the power dynamics is there, and people who feel oppressed will act out. Brother Parrish.
I like to speak to the indoctrination that we receive at a very young age that has us thinking that it's not okay to share how we're feeling. And there's like already a level or a heavy weight, especially as black men, put on us to behave in such a way whereas though we need to be strong all the time. You know what I mean? So with that, on top of the systems that we're actually oppressed by, in a sense, we're supposed to jump over all these hoops, still be able to provide and still be able to be a man, and then a black man on top of that. So we have extra like obstacles that we have to pretty much go through just to get the bare minimum at times. So I think another thing for us is really understanding our mental health, our emotional state of mind, and really look at and examine how we're feeling and why we're feeling the way that we're feeling, and just being honest and open about it,
Yeah.
regardless of the criticism that we may receive by individuals who are also fed this propaganda from birth. So it's like you're already born in this cage. You're already born with these weights on your shoulder. You're already born with, okay, this is what you are, this is what you need to be. It can't be any other way, and if it's not, you're a failure.
What is that? You need to be.
You
This
need
is
to
where you
be
are.
you need to be disciplined. You need to be a provider. You need to be a protector. You need to manage your emotions. You cannot be weak. You cannot be vulnerable. If you do not fit any of these criteria, it really doesn't make you feel like a man. So really you're living up to this delusion or false reality that was already imprinted on you from birth. And the problem comes in whereas though you don't have really, I'm not gonna say many, but most of us don't really have knowledge of that. Like you said earlier, how the media imprints these ideals on us, but it's not just like the news. Media could be music, it could be television, entertainment. And unfortunately for us, a lot of us like to gravitate towards this mainstream field because it's the end. You want to be like this. It's like your character is already molded before you even get a chance to understand who you are. So you are going through this life, especially here in the West, being really disconnected with yourself. And I spoke about this the other day. Like you really don't know who you are because you're not really in touch with your emotions. You're doing things out of habit. You're doing things because it's been taught to you consciously or unconsciously. And sometimes our parents reinforce this because they're also victims of it, not even knowing. So now they reinforce the propaganda that's been fed to them onto you. And now you're like, well, I'm not going along with this program. It doesn't feel like me, but I feel like I need to like be this way. So and also you can get, I'd say like people who don't go along to get along with the main crowd. They tend to be looked at as like the oddballs, or you don't want to be like that, or you get looked at kind of funny. But that also, for that individual, they get isolated because they feel
What are you
like,
saying though? You saying a lot, but
I am saying a lot.
What
But
are you saying?
ultimately, what I'm saying is the way that our characters are being molded from birth. This was already planned. What we're experiencing now are pretty much consequences of the systems that were already set in place before we were even here. So these personalities, this trauma that we're experiencing, all of this was already planned. Like it's
So what do
going the
we?
way.
So what do we? So
Yeah.
so okay. So it was already here. Is a system, and basically we go. So that gives us to our way of understanding, and we'll wrap up. We'll wrap back around with that.
Okay.
I hear what you're saying. Also, I got a little pushback from my brother.
Oh, absolutely. Let's go.
I say it's not your fault, but it's your problem.
That's a good
I
one.
don't be no victim.
That's a
Like
good
you gotta seek assistance and help, because something you said that I think is important is, although we may be born into certain neighborhoods and certain socioeconomic situations and whatever it may be, there are resources. And I think that it's important that we speak to our power also, and we also have all of the traits in our community and in our neighborhood and all of the attributes in our community and neighborhood and all of the role models in our community and neighborhood to actually live out our highest ideals. So yeah, things are tough, but we gonna make it. We definitely gonna make it. And I just want that to, like, I want to put that forward, because we have skill. We are community, my Pan-African black brothers and sisters. That's who I'm hoping I'm speaking for. And I'm, if I can even say I'm speaking for my brothers and sisters in the Pan-African community.
But at least what you're doing, you're saying, I just want to know who you're speaking about and what framework you're coming
I just
from.
don't want us to take on a victim mentality like, woe is me, it's happening to us, because there are things we can do as a community, individually, to not just rectify certain traumas and patterns and experiences, but also help us cope and deal and have survival programs and move forward.
So I think
we have to have a vision to move forward.
I think I like how we're doing this, right? Like, we understand that gender is a part of this. Like, this gender is real, right? I mean, some people say it's a social construct, or sex is, whatever. With those who at least identify certain genders in these situations, but we understand that it is this, that the issue is greater than our genders. Genders actually impact us differently. That our genders have us show up in this oppressive society, and we are oppressed differently, similarly and differently, depending on our gender. So
what I'm hearing you say, I just want to make sure I'm hearing you say correctly. So men and women, male and females, both experience levels of oppression, but they just experience them differently based on their gender.
Similarly and differently. I think I'm gonna keep that one as NJIA. Similarly and differently, because we also utilizing. I don't typically like what Crenshaw's intersectional frame has become, or what is. I think there's some utility there that says that, men see the problem with I think with Crenshaw's framework is that they don't necessarily count black male gender as they count that maleness that you and I have as a privilege. And it's not that simple. Just being a male does not make you privileged from the way I'm arguing.
Because they're thinking about it from a Eurocentric perspective, where males are more dominant, just like within that culture.
Absolutely.
But within our culture, I guess if we include even their culture, it'll be like white men, maybe white women, maybe black women, black men.
That's a debate, right? But I definitely would typically be white male, white female, black male is how we've been taught to look at it. But to me, that is a very difficult thing to tease out.
And what are we categorizing, just for clarity's sake? What are we categorizing?
What I'm saying is, I think we can look at this thing through quote unquote an intersectional lens, but not the intersectional lens, the intersectional feminist lens that we've been trained to see the world through. And that intersectional feminist lens actually looks at certain details as we examine these crises, these cases, these travesties, but it stops short. And it has what I saw on social media, where there's men and women alike that are seeing things for that lens and say, well, men are damn near the devils. Brothers, they're dangerous. That like is these, and I understand that, but we have to really be clear that the very person that says that, is that true about your brother? I ask people all the time, is that true about your cousin? Is that even true about your husband?
Yeah, it's like that perpetual stereotype of like the black male being aggressive. I mean, when I know a bunch of black men who they wouldn't hurt a fly.
and men in general, but the reality is what they tend to try to do is, okay, let me not get lost in this rabbit hole here, but what I want to do is say that I appreciate us from an NJIA perspective, not getting stuck on this idea or this framework that has us pointing the fingers back and forth between us in this room and our sisters. Because it's so easy. Like the reality is data, there's data everywhere. As you said, they said there's lies, damn lies, and then there's statistics. So that's data to support all types of heinous acts in our community. And I guarantee you, and I promise you, that no one, if you start sifting through the data between black males, females, and children, and black males being children, and black females being children, and how people look, the whole idea, I even saw it earlier. Dear Malcolm X, he said, like the Nation of Islam, they talk about the black woman is the most unprotected. That is a matter of perception, opinion. That is not necessarily a reality. That is, I can understand why one would say that. But it depends on what metric you are using to say that. I do, like, if you're talking about physicality and some other things as far as sexual abuse and all these, yes, but also not, because the reality is, see the data. Look, from an NJIA frame point, we should never get caught in the war between our brothers and sisters, but we should highlight what's going on. Because black men and black women children are being abused by black men and black women. And when they grow up, it impacts their relationships. So my thing is, we could throw mud on each other. I'm talking about there's no innocent people here, because all the hurt people in our communities, many of the hurt people in our communities are hurting people, willing, unwilling, consciously and unconsciously.
Yeah, something you just said that I think was very important. I just wanted to reiterate that as a point. You said children are being hurt by their parents, men and women, and that family structure. And that is also what I'm hearing is part of the root of this like thing that we're talking through.
Say that again for me.
You said it. Well, what I'm interpreting, and I just want to make sure I'm interpreting it correctly for clarity's sake. That children of black men and women are being abused by their parents, black men and women, probably maybe even not directly like abusive, but even verbally abusive, and some
directly like abusive,
and
physically, sexually,
yes,
and emotionally, psychologically, and I am and I don't want to say where it shows where it comes from, because it's not necessary. Okay. Because the reason why this person is even doing that is because of their oppressed state in this society. And I'm not giving them a pass. I'm talking about because the statistics will share that our sisters are doing this. But at the same time, we'll just keep passing the buck. They'll say, see, because what I'm saying is, just for the sake of conversation, we'll bring it up. But this is an example for us not to get stuck there. Well, women are abusing children at high rates on all the levels. But then they'll say because the black man ain't there. See, so what I'm saying is the ball never stops getting passed. And what I'm saying is, don't get caught up in I argue we shouldn't get caught up in that fight. I think we highlight what's going on, but the reality is, as in that book that Brother Carlos said, and Brother Carlos has in his hand, from Dr. Henry Gregory, which we talked about yesterday, and he says, see, what we do is we try to get caught up many times we fight about who is right and who is wrong, rather than, as I'm going to change it, rather than being happy, but I'm going to say rather than resolving our issues for real. Because the reality is, as Dr. Gregory often talks about, there's no innocent people in here, because we've been hurt. We all need to be held accountable, male, females. I can't even say the children, because we are really hurting our children. In fact, the reality is what we seeing being played out is hurt children as grown-ups.
May I read that section that you were just referencing for the audience.
If Carlos is okay with that, he's about to say something.
No, go right ahead.
Okay. This is, by the way, Mind Training: A Journey of Self-Actualization by Dr. Gregory. Another manifestation is the obsession with being right. Many of us would rather be right than happy, which is tied to an effort to control our situation. We feel fragile, so we have to be dominant. As a Black man, I know this can manifest in Black men very easily. For so long, it's been socially unacceptable to have a gentle or tender feeling in our subcultures. So we push them down. That tends to lead to anger, violence, and aggression. Sadly, those are acceptable masculine manifestations of our feelings in many communities. The last common manifestation is anger, which we dive into the next section. So that's in reference to this book. But I wanted to reference specifically this line of many of us would rather be right than happy, which I think Dr. Winkler had just referenced.
I just wanted to add that, and what I was looking at when we were talking about, I was just thinking about some of the things that even reading in this book, and when I was talking about this, I actually talked about this with my wife earlier, and I was referencing this book about this concept of not getting control, not understanding or getting control of your emotions or your feelings, and dealing with the fear. And those three, and he brings up three fears, and I think they directly tie into how people react to some of these things. And of course, one of these three fears are the fear of failure, the fear of uncertainty, and the fear of inadequacy. And it kind of lends to what Brother Parrish was saying a little bit, and definitely what Brother Dr. Dennis was saying. Like, we have so many traumas that as people, period, but definitely as Black people, that we deal with, that definitely doesn't get addressed in a ways that and people may disagree, that I think, well, I'm not gonna say they don't get addressed in a way that's helpful. It's that people in our own families don't want to address these things, and they have a fear of it goes back to what Brother Fur was saying. They have a fear of not just being right, but looking right. Like, there's no way my son is this way, or hitting on his, or abusing his kids. There's no way so they want to address. And if you see it and you bring it up, they'll tell you, well, you go talk to him. You go talk to him. I've talked to him, and he says nothing is going on, or nothing is wrong. And so we have this fear of being, that I go to the fear and adequacy. Are we inadequate? Or are we successful at being parents? Or are we successful at being husbands or brothers or sisters or any family members? If we confront this situation and acknowledge it and try to work through these situations to help these people deal with their traumas, or do we just leave it alone and let, quote unquote, the experts deal with it? But it takes more than the experts to deal with it. Like, you know what I'm saying? You need the whole dynamic to deal with these things. And we fall short a lot of times because we just don't want to deal with it as people, or we don't want to have the person, we don't want nobody to say, oh, his brother crazy, or he beating on them kids like that. You'll come to the rescue of that, even though you know it's happening. So because you put it on yourself.
Can I say this real quick, and I'll turn it over to you, Brother Paris. I see you got a powerful statement coming. And see, so this is what I don't want us to do, but I mean, we're going to do it. It's kind of natural to do it. And I don't see this person here, Vid for real, says, when Black women are harmed, they are overwhelmingly harmed by Black women. And then the next statement, they say, I don't know if they was correcting it, but it's not correct. It's just not correct in general. When Black women are harmed, they are overwhelmingly harmed by Black men. So what I'm saying is, which one is correct? And the reality is this, that what statistics and what do you mean by harm? What's the metrics? What are you considering harm? And who defined harm? And we have, like, when we really, and what we're going to do here, as the NJIA Rite of Passage, we're going to bring to you how statistics and how data has been skewed to keep us divided, and how the media has been skewed and misused. And as Brother First spoke about, how we collect in certain, see, we don't even realize that there's certain definitions of violence that would actually exclude men from being able to receive it when men were recipients of that level of harm, so it's undercounted. But then there's also the truth is that men don't report certain levels of violence. So what I'm trying to say is I argue that we don't get caught in the back and forth between our brothers and sisters. We highlight the harm is cyclical. It's what did Dr. Tommy Carey call it? He called it's bi-directional. But it's more than bi-directional, because Dr. Stacy Patton speaks about in how we harm our children. And these adults, I want to repeat, these adults were harmed children many times. And it goes back to what Brother Los is saying. He's saying this inadequacy, this fear of inadequacy, this fear of failure, and this fear of, what's the other one? Mike.
Uncertainty.
And fear of uncertainty, which this culture creates in our minds. And I promise you, it showed up in these situations, and I haven't even met these people. Brother Parrish.
I wanted to speak to the effects of fear and what they can cause in the body too. So fear, especially if you experience it for a long period of time, it can be detrimental to your health. You can cause so many different disorders in the body. And I'm going back to the book. Baba Gregory talks about how fear is a paralyzing emotion, how it can lead to psychological and behavioral changes. So this thing can affect you, like, mentally. Like, a lot of the times, I don't think we understand how being in a hostile environment or just being in a state like that for extended periods of time can cause mental health, such as like depression, and then you get on these medications, and these medications can cause many other things. But I digress with that one. Let's see. While in a state of fear or trauma, we lose access to the prefrontal cortex because we are in a protective mode. If we don't come out of that mode, we may lose access to the prefrontal cortex. So, like, this is actually doing something to affect our behavioral patterns through our emotions. And speaking on what Brother Los was speaking on, in regards to us being in these states and just refusing to accept responsibility for things that may have happened in our family, many of that comes from the fear of changing or the fear of acknowledging. It's like we push these things in the corner, and he also speaks about this in the book, where eventually it's going to come out somewhere. Like, that's like the angry person. Like you a calm person, but people you get pushed on like every day. Eventually it's going to give. Something's going to give. And then by you being in that hostile state of mind, it's messing with your body physically, And then there was something else that you spoke on, the inadequacy. We are made to believe that we're inadequate by the system, and by us trying to achieve, and we do achieve, but in a lot of cases, if we're unable to achieve that, we feel that what was taught to us was actually right about us, and we develop that self-hate. And then that self-hate that we internalize can come out in other different ways too, and by us refusing to actually heal, look internally into our own selves and really analyze, like, am I really like this way? Like, you're listening to these outside forces that have so much power, or you're allowing them to have this power over you. Going back to what Brother First said, you got to have a responsibility to actually come out of that yourself and actually take this healing journey to push forward and just prove it wrong. You meet other like-minded individuals that are serious about healing. You do yourself, which ultimately will heal the community, the macrocosm, because eventually once you heal, you don't pass that down to your children, because it's a cycle.
Let me say this real quick before we move on, because the goal is not to point fingers, but this statement here, when black women are harmed, they are overwhelmingly harmed by black men, came back up. And as one who actually done was trained in domestic violence, and worked with domestic violence victims and those who commit them. In fact, I've never seen it go one way in the black community. It's typically reciprocal, bi-directional. It looks different, but depends on what you're calling harm. But in domestic violence situation, as this PubMed article and various articles across research that exists show that women in same-sex relationships, and this is very common knowledge. This is very common knowledge in domestic violence spaces. So again, across research that exists, women in same-sex relationships, lesbian couples, tend to report intimate partner abuse at somewhat higher rates than men in same-sex relationships, though both groups experience high levels of abuse. And so anyway, they tend to, even in same-sex or women in those relationships tend to report higher levels of violence. Now, the point is, I don't want to even blame it on, we'll begin to blame and pointing the fingers back and forth, because there's all types of research you can show, this, that, and da-da-da-da. The reality is we are people that are hurt. And you will never find, I promise you, with all the research, all the data, all the social stuff, all this and all that, you will never, ever, some of us just want to be right. Again, some of us would rather be right than realize it's a major problem around us, and to point the fingers back and forth is not going to resolve the issue. Because we can use data all day and all types of data, and it doesn't mean not to use the data, but the reality, we have to ask the question, why? Why? It doesn't matter. It does matter to a degree, but why? Why are we? If men are doing more of this, why? If women are doing more of this, then why? If same-sex relationships are doing this, why? What is creating the thoughts, the feelings, that's invoking these actions? And we let white supremacy, we let this system off that is failing all of us every time we continue to try to be right about these gender conversations. It's not to say not to look at them, but we get lost in them. We get lost in them, and we want to make the other wrong, and we want to make the other right. And the world is just not that simple. It's not that simple. When you're dealing with real people and real human beings, you will understand that even those people that you make monsters of are people that the people they were in these relationships with actually love them. Things happen to people. And it's a thin line between sanity and insanity. It's a thin line. And to say that, to say that there's nothing, this has nothing to do with mental health, is the worst type of mistake. And I don't care about no diagnosis, because somebody made the diagnosis up.
Yeah.
You saying something, brother?
Yeah. And I do want to touch on that, because the other thing is, like, we tend to, even just to go back on what I was making, the statement I was making before, the other thing is, like, people do reach out for help. People show you that they want help, even in these situations where they don't look like, or because you can't take it. You say, oh, these people are just this way, or they continuously do this, or this, that. They are literally, sometimes it's just like the book actually gave an example about their kids who are smart and they sit in the front of the class, and then there's other kids who feel, like I said, they feel inadequate. They're looking for help. They're reaching out for help, and they they start acting out, being a class clown and things like that. Again, I go back to this. Because we've been traumatized by the system and been taught to like even look at ourselves as bad people, whether it's black men, black women, black kids, but look at ourselves as bad people, that we tend to be guilty ourselves of not recognizing when people need help and not addressing that help. We tend to be guilty of that. And we're, like I said, we're not superheroes, but it goes back to the group. I mean, I think this is a great conversation, because we are like you brought up you just said something extremely powerful. Why? And I think it does get to a point of like people just want the immediate gratification of knowing this is the reason it happened instead of really dealing with what it is that's needs to be done to help remedy this stuff.
Again, the evidence is so crazy, like to point out simple facts. I mean, as VDID for real says, it's not blame, it's facts. I don't want to go down the list of what women do that is heinous. I don't want to go down the fact of what a same-gendered loving community do that is worse than this one. I don't want to go down the list of what males do worse than this one. I am telling you, it is a exercise of futility. It is a way to get caught in the finger pointing game, and the information is just wrong. The same gender relationships, lesbian relationships, report higher abuse. It's a fact. That's the fact. That's the fact. But the reality, but to continue to say that it's something that it isn't, that's problematic. But I'm not blaming even my lesbian sisters who are in these relationships. I'm not, because there is something at play that is that in this culture that is insidious, that is horrendous, that is toxic, what is oppressive, what keeps people at odds with one another. And I don't want to play into that game, because I understand when people try to weaponize data, and this is the wrong data about it. It's just not accurate. I've done too many domestic violence training. I mean, IPV trainings. We know that, but then people try to use that data against lesbian sisters. They try to use that and say, well, this is evidence that they have mental health problems, versus looking at, see, this is this poor type of scientific lens to look at people's issues. We try to look at facts and try to use whatever little data and say, this is what happened, this is why, and men do this because of this, and lesbians do this because of this, and you have no evidence to that. You have no evidence to that. We can go down a list and talk about how many young men, when you really look at the data, report that they've been sexually abused, and it parallels many times to their female counterparts. But many times the same young males don't see it that way. They didn't see themselves as being abused because they welcomed it. They thought that made them a grown man. So what I'm saying is that it's a futile situation to point fingers back and forth. That's not what we do with NJIA. With NJIA, we understand that we are under a system that is the culture creates certain types of mentalities. It creates certain types of mindsets, and it creates people, not males, not females, and damn sure not children, that are that are villains. Now, people do become villains, but why? Why do people hurt people? And the fact is, when people are struggling with their own trauma, they find it difficult to sit down and look at this thing clearly, because we feel like that's a threat on our own defenses that we've created to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
So we won't look at the information. We won't listen to other sides, but what we will do is what Dr. Gregory suggests that we don't do, and that is to try to just be right. So again, I think the right thing to do is to try to resolve this and stop the finger pointing.
Yeah.
And the misinformation, like Roland Martin, I don't know how he can come out continuously saying that 96% of domestic violence cases are at the hands of men towards women, which is, even if you're not even a statistician, that doesn't make sense to you. 96% of occasions. Again, how do you measure this? What is being measured? What is being reported? What are all these things? But guess what? Don't let that data get in the way. We know we hurting each other. And we know that whether it's physical, whether it's mental, whether it's psychological, whether it's through your religion, whether it's through using your children against each other. I mean, I'm trained in this. I know the wheel of abuse, the whole Duluth model, which is a pseudoscientific model, and that we run all this ideas through this feminist propaganda. I know the Duluth model. I've been trained in it. It has good aspects of it, the power and will, the power wheel, and the house of abuse, and all that. It has some good things in it, but it is a theory that is short-sighted, and it is very white feminist type of framework that is short-sighted, and it doesn't equate for especially Black, female, and male relationships. But can you take something out of it? Yeah. Because I ask people, they think that, look, I say, so who uses the children the most against each other? I mean, I don't want y'all to answer that. That's just, see, that would just be anecdotal. But who uses religion and says that God said this and I'm supposed to be this way? Who uses the finances? At this day and time, it's rough. And that's part of the issue. That even us as males, we've bought into this idea that we supposed to be the breadwinner, that we supposed to be the one who brings it home. And then even if we have a good wife who doesn't care about all that type of thing, we struggle. We struggle with it. It hits us in our egos. You know what I mean? And at some point, she gets frustrated. She like, look, I can't help you. Like, and then she does, like, get out. I'm telling you, I mean, I see too much. Let's talk about some real situations. Yeah. I work with men every day. I work with sisters every day. And I see what goes on every day. I see the hurt, the pain. I have brothers going through divorces right now all around me. I have sisters going through divorces right now all around me. And these are some very turbulent times. And people are hurt. And it is essential that you receive support. And like you said, resources are here, Brother Fur. But the reality is resources aren't always easy for everybody to reach out and get. We act like we don't understand like what depression really looks like.
Yeah.
Like we act like we talk like we these great mental health professionals, but some people struggling with depression, they don't even feel like turning over in the bed sometimes.
Yeah.
They don't even feel like turning the light on. They don't feel like eating. Now you telling me I'm going to sit here and tell somebody my whole life story that I don't know? But at the same time, I'm telling you, I feel like a failure. I'm saying male, female, and even our youth. We are in a society that is so liberal and now so conservative, this conservative, the liberal swing and lean, that there's no way, there's no culture. There's no way, there's no culture. There's a swing back and forth. There's a culture, it's white people culture. And we try to fit into that. And we try to fit into that and define what we believe success is. But again, from a NJIA framework, it is not about trying to be right. It's about trying to resolve the issue. Like I said yesterday, and like I always say, don't chase the daggone, the rabbit down the hole. Because we will continue. I promise you that Black men and Black women will continue to, this is what women do, and this is what men do, and this is what women do, and this is what the data say here, and this is what the data say here. And most of them ain't using no data. That's what I realized in the first place. Most of them ain't using data. But I will submit that feminist propaganda is in most of our minds as it pertains to how we see Black men and women relationships in this country and others as well. And I'm saying it's all white.
You know, a lot was said thus far. I think that there's a baseline for understanding here, and there's a couple different things that I just wanted to reiterate that I thought was extremely important. You know, I'll bring it way back.
Proper, you got something.
You know, Brother Parrish had mentioned that in some cases people take medications and make things worse. As we're having the conversation about resources,
not 50 already.
It's important not to stigmatize what's needed. Some people do need medication. It just is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody can just deal with their problems. So we got to talk about that part. There's also the stigma of having the conversation about your problems, feeling as if that inadequacy is so limited to you, or whatever that feeling is so limited to you. And in our community, we villainize each other for being vulnerable and having those experiences. And most of the time it's because hurt people hurt people. I don't want to talk about my problems, so I'm gonna clown you for talking about your problems. You know, I don't want to deal with my trauma, so I'm gonna clown you for dealing with your problems. You know, oh, you're not tough enough to deal with it by yourself. Or, I mean, shoot. As many of my students had mentioned, well, a couple students didn't show up today because apparently it's a holiday, because most people are drowning their problems in substances, whatever that substance may be. You know, I'm saying that to say we, as we're having this conversation about mental health, it's important to note that there's ways to cope with situations that are positive, and there's ways to cope with situations that are negative. And we have resources. Oftentimes we don't use resources. There's even 988. You know, I've told people, hey, you should call 988. And they are very defensive about the idea. Oh, they're gonna show up to my job. No, they're not. they're gonna report on you. I mean, look, if you need the resource, it's better that you're here tomorrow. You know, and I want to take a moment and really say that, because people are going through some real things, and not just in Baltimore. We in Baltimore, everywhere. But not just in Baltimore, but everywhere. And this is a big conversation. It's a big conversation. I don't want to take I don't want to minimize the importance of this conversation, and I want to also just reiterate that we have resources. We have to talk about the resources that we have. Let me actually just say from my own perspective, right? So let me just mention, I'm in this rites of passage, right? But I came to this rites of passage because I sought therapy, and I found Dr. Winkler online. Google search. I said, I need a Black therapist because I need somebody who's going to understand me. You got to do that. You got to know at least who you're going to feel comfortable talking to. I didn't want to go and talk to some old white lady. I didn't feel like she'd relate to me. I'm not saying that that's who is guaranteed on the other end of the line, but I'm saying I don't want to just search for anybody. I was specific. Some people don't even know that you can do that. Just Google Black therapist, right? And then from there, I looked up what therapists were provided by my insurance. You know, you can look that up. It's readily available. Some people don't know to do that. I think it's important to go and state that, because if you don't know that you can look up who you have available through your insurance provider, you may not even go through a resource. There's available opportunities at some people's job to have free resources of therapy through BetterHelp and variety of other services, right? There's meditation and mental health and journal apps and a variety of different things. There's YouTube videos. You don't feel comfortable talking to somebody? Listen to a YouTube video. There's so many books and literature, you know? So this conversation, part of it is we don't have the resources. That is a fact. That is a false. That is false, and that is the thing I want to stand on. Like, you know, and I think Dr. Winkler is very passionate about some things, but one of the things that I think I'm extremely passionate about is this false idea that we don't have enough resources. We got too many resources. We don't have enough people going to those resources.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, going back to what I was talking about earlier, and I'll go back to our dear brother, Dr. Cleo. Is it Manat? How you say it? How you say
Manago.
Manago. And he talks about this trauma trance that we find ourselves in. And I remember, I don't quite have the quote, but again, even what Dr. Winkler is saying by saying, oh, these Black people are the reason, this Black man is the reason, this Black woman is the reason, or those bad Black kids, or those dirt bike riders, or whatever the situation comes where you can put a group of people in the blame blender. I need to coin that, the blame blender. the blame blender, it's like you're not gonna help anybody by saying these things. It's literally actually continuously hurting. It's going to continue to hurt. So I don't know his exact quote, but I know it was along those lines where he said, like, even when you're coming and you find yourself in a position to that you think you're helping by making these statements or putting these people in a certain box, you're actually not helping them. You know, so I go back to that, and just like I said, I keep reiterating, and I'm doing this from a personal standpoint. Like I've myself done that. Like I've brushed off situations where I knew it was a problem, and it was like any inkling of the person not doing that thing again, you just say, oh, they must have got it together. They must have got it. Must be all right now. And it's not fair to them, to everybody that's involved, the whole family, the community. It's not fair to give up that easily on the people. So that's the stance that I'm on tonight, as far as like the mental health aspect, this whole idea of the blame game and things like that. I just think that I think that blame game is given up on the community. That's what I feel like.
I feel like it's kind of lazy too, in my personal opinion.
What do you mean by that?
Just to blame without like doing actual research to figure out why a person would even attempt to do or behave a certain way. Like get to the root of the issue before just saying it was his fault, it was her fault. She did this because of this. He did this because of that. It's really getting to the root of the issue and being honest with yourself and just healing from it.
But that's one of the issues.
And you gotta want it. You have to want it.
But that is one of the things. Like what you just said is like, say what you just said again.
But it's lazy word.
And you said get to the bottom,
get to the root of the issue. Why the individual
that's the challenge.
Made the choice that they made.
That's the challenge.
What influenced them?
That's the challenge. And that's why when you say like statistics, data, all this stuff is helpful, but it goes down a rabbit hole of like I said, I always said it, when you're doing research, you look for the things you want to support you, whatever. Like you don't look at the things that, you know, normally. I'm not saying 100%, but like you said, trying to get to the root, that is the hard thing.
And I feel
that's the hard thing.
And I also feel, and this is my personal opinion, individuals who tend to think like that, it's very linear. Not that it's just lazy, but I feel like they also have they could be experiencing internalized trauma too, which is giving them that lens to search for information to pretty much back what they already believe. I feel like that's also a part of it that people probably wouldn't feel comfortable talking about, or they just seen it so much in their lives that it's that way. I've seen it all my life, so it has to be that way.
We did, even what happened in Shreveport in Louisiana is a tragedy, right? What we have heard since this happened is how bad this guy is, how bad he had to be to do this, how bad he had to be to kill his kids and kill these children, right? But they've actually shown where this guy, and I'm not saying he should, I'm not taking up for him killing his kids. They've actually shown where this guy made statements in the recent times, reaching out for help, saying things like, please don't let this be the thing that takes me down this road. Yes, they actually, I don't know if it's a manifesto, but they went back looking through, I guess, social media things and things like that, where he literally is saying, help me. I don't want to do this stuff.
You know, that, although I didn't know that, and I appreciate you sharing that context.
I didn't know that either.
That is part of what I'm talking about. There's got to be signs and symptoms that come before that tragedy. And as Dr. Winkler mentioned, it's not something that happens in a vacuum. It's not this one incident. This is happening all around. and the signs and symptoms are all around us. So like we have to address this on a larger level as well as the individual level,
and even a more personal level, because it's the people in our lives. And I see here, I think what this person is saying here, they're specifically speaking about black women and black men. But again, I think that becomes, then you can go back. So who hurts black men more? Who hurts black children more? Is versus the broader society.
we all hurting.
No, but what I'm saying is versus what the data says for the over general public. But there's not even a lot of data for how black men receive or vice versa, go back and forth. But in this particular case, I think they're saying black women versus women in general. But Roland Martin said 96% of 96% of, he was speaking general, not black. So I think this might be the argument here with this particular individual. But at the same time, it still gets us to this point about pointing the finger, because then you'll say who hurt black men more, then you say who hurt black children more, and then we know that it's happening, and we know that in all races the people within the race hurts them more. So I think that becomes like, again, we get stuck in this perpetual finger pointing. I think there's no surprise that we are hurting each other more. I don't think, I mean, unless you all think that white people are hurting us more. I'm talking about like in an interpersonal type of sense, or intraracial sense. Now, they hurt us in ways to create conditions.
Maybe systematically.
I would
feel that on a systematic level. But on an interpersonal, like a day-to-day basis, I don't know if I feel it on that level. Especially being in Baltimore, we are a chocolate city.
But again, I think I appreciate it. So I think like getting back, and I don't want to go back into the meta analysis. I want us to kind of come down as we kind of bring this to a more of like a we summarize and close this down. I think it's essential to look at this from a more intraracial, interpersonal framework, because we acting like this stuff is so far away from us. I mean, I know too many people who could have been that brother. I know too many sisters. I know too many people could have been that sister. In fact, I have cousins, female cousins, male cousins, people who have been victimized by their partners.
Yeah.
You know, and go ahead, Brother Lewis.
Yeah. So again, like I said, I don't want to misrepresent Roland Martin, because I didn't watch the whole episode but the day that this tragedy happened in Virginia. I think some of the things that rub people in general the wrong way, but definitely showing, it was a big response to how he responded to the actual act and who he showed, and this may sound crazy, but who he showed sympathy to, which was his friend, his frat brother. And I think it came out insensitive to the wife who was murdered as well, right? And this is just my opinion. I think a lot of that pushback also is because it's the exact same thing white people do for white people who kill, like school shooters and stuff. So when it's a black person, if it's a Muslim, if it's this, that, and other, that it's monster, they got all the reasons why they did it, this, that, and other. When it's a young white guy who did something, he was hurt. He was a great guy, and I can't imagine how he did it. And Roland Martin came off with all of he was a great guy, he this, that, and other. Not saying he wasn't to you, you know what I mean? But I think the insensitivity of at the time. So it goes back to exactly how I was treating this thing with this brother in unfortunate situation in Louisiana. All the media was about how heinous this guy was, how horrible he was. There was no touch on like when the school shooters do something and said, well, he grew up in this great neighborhood. How he was a great guy. I never would have thought that he would have did this.
So
Yeah.
you're saying the framing of the profile of the suspect is different based on who the person is.
And I
So
believe,
like in those situations, like, you know, which is all tragedy, but
Mhm.
like a Sandy Hook or a situation. Well, you know, but I'll give a little pushback because I think they go into the psychological background oftentimes when it comes to different suspects, even of different races. But I will say, when it comes to black males in particular, they zone in a little different, and they frame it in a way that's kind of like a almost like expected, like oh yeah, you know.
but they don't ever use that. They don't ever see the other side. That's what I'm saying. When the squeegee kids shot the guy, one of the squeegee boys or whatever, shot the guy, it was this, though all the squeegee kids were the people who could shoot people. You understand what I'm saying?
So like
and
a
the
more
guy got out with a
generalization.
bat. The guy got out with a bat. And I'm not justifying a person being killed, but the guy got out with a bat. They didn't address the fact that the guy got out with a bat to attack somebody. He was the good guy because he was the squeegee kid was the bad guy. So that's what I'm saying. In these situations, that's we going back to how the trauma that we've had.
So what are we saying? I just want to make sure we not like, what are we saying here?
No, what I'm saying is I'm going back to what Paris said. We're all traumatized. We're so traumatized that in our own mind we get this thing that we make our own self the bad guys. You know what I'm saying?
So I know you was tying this to Roland Martin though.
Yeah, because I'm saying a lot of the pushback that I think he got was people thought he was being insensitive to the wife who was killed. So he was basically, you know, he went on the same thing that I feel like that white people do when they are.
So what's your analysis of that?
I believe that, like with him, I believe that
like he had an agenda.
Yeah, it's almost like he had an agenda. And I don't believe that. I'm gonna give Roland Martin the benefit of the doubt. I don't believe he thought less of. I'm pretty sure he was friends with the wife as well. But I think when it's just like the point I was making earlier, when it's somebody you don't want to be tied to a monster, but so you create a non-monster. This is my friend. I can't believe it. Everybody else can call him a monster.
Were they part of the same fraternity?
Yeah. So in your mind, it's just like in your.
But why does people have to be monsters? Let me be clear. Hold on. Nobody in this case has to be a monster. And that's the problem I have. And I had that problem because even Vid is cute. I said no black, like again, I'm saying black women including, there's no difference across races. And in fact, the research doesn't show that it's not even enough research to show the other direction. But it's again, why are we getting caught up on that, on who did this percentage more than that percentage more and that percentage more? That is because that comes from a place of hurt and pain when we do that.
Yes.
That comes from I have to point the finger and pin it on somebody.
Yes.
So and even with this Roland Martin thing, certain people are going to hear certain things depending on their own trauma. Now, I am not the protector of Roland Martin by in no means. But what I will say is nobody, I don't know that brother. I don't know him. I don't know him at all. I doubt that this act right here was horrendous. This act right here was horrible. But I've worked with people who were this close to doing it. And what I'm saying is they are not monsters. They were lost. They didn't know what to do. They weren't even going to take their own lives. There are things that happen where we don't have to make people monsters. We don't have to, not on this platform. You can do all that pointing finger, all that everywhere else, just not here.
Yes.
We can show. I'm not going to be talking about how black women are doing this more. I think it's a time to play. I think we can look at that, but to use it as a way for what though?
Yes, exactly.
Why are we like what's so important here? Why do we have to make a person a monster instead of a hurt person who hurt a person?
Yes.
who hurt other people, or hurt a deranged person. And perhaps deranged, what my conceptualization would be from this deranged society and culture that we find ourselves in. See, the problem is that we have to have and make that person so inhuman that we don't really deal with the core deep issue. And I looked at Roland Martin, and maybe I listened to it on twice speed, and I listened to 2 interviews, him with one with some brothers and another with some sisters. And I'm not really a fan of Roland Martin, to be honest with you. I wish he would have let the sister psychologist go in more from the Association of Black Psychologists. I think she was the president of DC's chapter. And I think that she was saying some very pivotal things. And she's saying that what happens is, and I agree, this is NJIA, when you are so under threat, and this is what Dr. Gregory is talking about in that book, you lack empathy. And this is what Dr. Gregory is speaking about. You lack empathy to see the humanity even in that person who was hurt. There are people, our babies are out here hurting people, and we give them second chances. There are people who come home 30 years after taking a life for somebody else, and we give them second chances. We fight for them. But see, the problem is when it shows up in our household, or if it reminds us something to happen in our households, we have to demonize people. And I'm not saying that the act itself wasn't horrendous. Yeah. I am saying the act was horrendous, and I wouldn't see. And the fact is, I could say no one should ever go through it, but I promise you, people will continue to go through it. And I just want to be honest. People will continue, and they will continue to go through it, especially when our analysis is at the individual level. Our analysis has to be a systems level analysis. We have to change the frame, the environment, the ecology that the people are living in order to change these people. People, the culture, the desires, what does success mean, all these type of things. We can point the finger all day, and we all being tricked. I don't care what your damn data says. I know it's essential. It is essential. But don't let the data become the thing that keeps us at art with each other. Because there's plenty of data that I can find on my brothers. There's that I can weaponize all day. There's plenty of data that I can point in, I can find on my sisters that I can point in them all day. There's plenty of data that I can find on black dads that I can call them this all day. There's plenty of data on black moms that I can call them this all day. But I understand that data is just a snapshot, is a symptom of what is really going on. Brother Fur.
So something you're saying that I find extremely important that I'm hearing you say, and I just want to just reiterate it because I think it's extremely important, that it's not the symptom that we need to look at. It's not the individual level. It is the root cause, the system level that we need to change, right? So I wanted to maybe repose that. What does that look like? Because I think that, as we're having this conversation, a lot of people think about these things on so many different levels. They think about them on the individual level so many times. And even everyone's individual level is based so much on their perspective and their geographic, their socioeconomic, political position, and all the rest of these things that make it even more nuanced in the individual. How do we change this on a system level? I want to pose that as a question.
That's a real
question. What was the question?
How do we think about this on the system level opposed to the individual level?
Hey, brother Cuz, did you have something before we keep moving? I know you've been in the back. I didn't know if you had anything or not. We want to make sure we honor those who came up.
No, I'm good. I'm listening and learning, and I'm talking to a few people in the chat, and I'm still doing research. So, but
okay,
I'm
all
good.
Right. So, what do y'all brothers think to the brother first question? Y'all want to take a stab at that?
I like to take a little jab at it. Removing yourself from it's difficult to do because we do live in the West, but really analyze the ideologies that were pretty much given to us and see what substitute that we could use that's culturally based in our culture that works for us specifically. I feel like that, and you have to have a re-education of many things. History, for example, just being educating in history can give you the confidence that you may need that this society kind of beats down on us from. So a lot of us suffer from issues with the wrong image and what we should achieve. But we can look back at our greats and really remold the model that they were molded into in order to achieve something better in our age. Outside of that, I think those are the top answers that I would kind of have for that. And it's like I say, it's difficult to remove yourself from Western cultures because we're consistently bombarded with information, whether we like it or not, because we work here. Some of us have jobs and we work in these facilities that really are anti-African in a sense. And then the way that this capitalistic society functions, it's really not healthy unless you are able to obtain a different route of gaining income through like entrepreneurship, etc. But outside of that, just remove yourself as much as you can from the Western ideologies that kind of hold us down mentally. That's what I have for Brother Fur.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also still want to touch on from a way of understanding. I think we went through a lot of talk tonight and discussion of understanding some of the reasons that these things continue to happen in our community. And I think from a standpoint of a way of being, only word I can think about is, courage. And it may be a strong word, especially when somebody's dealing with some things. We definitely had this fear that we talked about earlier, but I'm just going to use the word courage to be assertive with getting help, with understanding people that need help, understanding what our roles are in these things that's going on.
Yeah.
And accepting those, whether people like you or not. It goes back to this thing about being right and being happy. Like, you could, you're not gonna get a positive result if you just point a finger at a thing and don't address it and just because that's just your immediate gratification.
Yeah.
And those things that's gonna just keep happening. They're gonna just keep happening. Just because you said, see, I told you so, that don't mean it's over with. It's gonna continue to happen. So we as people, as a community, as families, as brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, dads, we have to have the courage to notice what can we contribute to this thing as far as help. And one thing we can do is actually acknowledging it. Don't be afraid to be attached to someone who needs some help. That's it. Although it's a reflection on you. It is a reflection on you. You don't have to be embarrassed by that. If your child needs help, if you need help, if your brother needs help or your family, then you should be able to understand that and offer what. You're not going to be the expert, but offer whatever you can, and don't push it. Don't roll it down the hill to the next person. You understand? Because then when you roll it down the hill to the next person, then you'll be the first person pointing. See, I told you. When you had you didn't involve yourself in the help.
Yeah, my clinical data, and I'm certain that you probably find much empirical data, which tells you the why to many of the numbers, is that Black women feel unprotected and Black men feel disrespected. Black women feel unprotected and Black men feel that they're undervalued. And that's a real issue in our community. And I understand both sides. So if we want to really get into the data, like, I work with men and women, and trust me, I know things about men and women that tells me they're all in survival mode. And I say all is a sweeping generalization. I'm talking about many people are struggling in this sense. I mean, I promise you, one data point doesn't tell the whole story. It doesn't. That's just a data point to say, ha! But it doesn't tell you her response. It doesn't tell you his response. And what I realize is we feel unsafe as a people. And when our ideals are Western, and I'm going to come back to your question, Brother Fur. When they're Western ideals, we have to do a unlearning and a relearning. And we have to do that on a societal level. Part of it is what we're trying to do here today. It's a struggle because a lot of us want to get caught up on Western frameworks, ideas, and data points. And then we also don't realize that when we're seeing like even looking at what Roland did, we'll get so caught up in what Roland did versus really. I mean, I looked at both things. It wasn't horrendous. It was like, okay, he came where he came, and he even brought the sisters on there and the brothers on there. And I'm not even that much of a fan of Roland Martin. To be honest with you, I think he should let the sister speak more, because I think she had honestly, out of all the people I heard on the platform, the one sister, the mama, I think she was an elder sister, was the president, I think, of the site. Out of all the panelists, the two brothers, they were good, you know. The two sisters that came after the mom, I'm gonna call her mom. I think she was a little of age. She, to me, had the clearest analysis. And when we are struggling with trauma, we get stuck on data points, or we don't even look at data points. But the reality is, we have to be able to come from a place of empathy, and that's a scary place. So again, we got to heal ourselves on that individual level, but on a social level, we have to unlearn, relearn, because we've been miseducated. And we have to spread a different way of seeing things, as Stephen Biko did, like a Black consciousness of sort, where we can see the enemy, the Wizard of Oz, that's really got us all fighting one another. And I'm not saying the fighting ain't happening, because it's happening. But the reality is, we've been set up. What Malcolm said? We've been hoodwinked, bamboozled. And it's true. Dr. Henry Gregory talks about this idea that we've been all played. Men, women, we have been played, and we've been played against each other, and we're continuously being played against one another. So again, I will push back on any framework, because I understand frameworks have us at odds. See, these wars, even during this times, this lack of empathy is coming from a certain level of education. And we don't have to go to the university, because the university trickles down into our minds. We don't even realize the theories and the lenses we're looking through. Again, those brothers did some horrendous things. I'm also certain that something horrendous has happened to them. And some people say, well, nothing is ever worth that. Tell somebody who's suffering that. When they feel no love, no support, and that darkest, we can be idealistic all we want. There's never a time where you put your hands on somebody. People have been putting their hands on people probably since the dawn of time. If you think you're going to stop it by saying that, I'm sorry. But we are also in a culture that makes it very easy and more popular to do so. even though they say one thing, teach one thing, but people, our households are in shambles. Those who are married are unhappy. Those who, most of them got married and got divorced. We don't know how to be in relationship with each other because we are at odds and we got to be right versus resolving the issue. We got to be right. We got to prove the point that black men ain't shit. And we got to prove the point that black women ain't shit. I talk to everybody. Look, I'm too sensitive for them. But the reality is, as long as we got to prove that black men ain't shit and black women ain't shit, we ain't going to be shit together. What I am suggesting, and I argue and maintain, we have to find a way to resolve our issues. Look, I'm a happy married black man. Let me say that again. I'm a happily married black man. I ain't talking nothing. I'm telling you the truth. Because we don't get caught on data points. We know that we matter more than any of the petty differences in who did this first and what happened here happened. See, because that mindset is not just for the social scientists and the scholars. That should take you right. It goes right into your household. Oh, and you fighting back and forth. It don't stop there. Engineers don't stop being engineers when they get home. They look in our men's group, Brother Fur. What I call the brothers? You don't know. It's been a while. Engineers. Because lots of times they looking at things, data points, and think this is how a lot of men think. Well, if that doesn't make sense of this and that, because they think very analytical and logical lots of times, and they can't understand emotions and feelings. They get stuck. Then you know, and I'm not saying that's a male trait. I'm saying that this is how they've been conditioned. Some women are this way, some men are the other way, and we've been conditioned in ways that have us acting in some strange ways. So again, we can fight all day. But look, if you want to go and check out that Roland Martin, check out that second one. I get it. People talking about this ain't mental health. You out of your mental health mind when you say that. Because I don't, look, it doesn't matter. You don't need a diagnosis to have a mental health problem. And guess what? Most people are arguing whether or not you call trauma a mental health disorder. So what we're saying is we don't know what the hell we're talking about. So I don't care. Well, I do care about all of it. Let me be clear. I care about accurate information. But I also am very clear that if we continue to just play the pointing game, we trying to, and we not, and let's keep it a buck. This society has not been easy on black people in general. I also think that we have to be real clear that there is no quantifying our hurt. Who is more hurt? Black men, black women. There's no way to do that. I can't even do that. Like, even on a spiritual level, if you want to go there, how can my sister be hurt and somehow that not impact me? How can my wife be hurt and that not impact me? How can a black man be hurt and the black woman who's there at home praying for her not be hurt? How can she send her sons out into the street every day and you think she's not being impacted by that police brutality that is disproportionately impacts black men? But as much as that impacts black men, it impacts that black mother, that black wife, that black daughter, that black woman who is concerned about you every day. I promise, we got to stop the finger pointing in our community. We have to figure out. The one thing I would say I think Roland did right was that we got to figure out why this is happening. I know that's not popular during this time, but it ain't never popular. It's a very unpopular thing to say, I want to consider what the hell is going on with this man, because you don't see him as a man. You see him as a monster. And it's easier to see him as a monster because of your trauma. He did something very monstrous. But that was somebody's son. And that was somebody's daughter. And I guarantee you, they weren't monsters to each other for a long time. But something happened. And I don't know that story. But I do know stories of many men and women that come to me for counseling. And I know, and I've seen them play, and they become very vicious when they go into that divorce process. I've seen some do it is better than some. But some, they get caught up in this Western societal way of parting where it's all or nothing, zero-sum game. And they can't believe that this was their husband, or they can't believe this is their wife that I've been with for years. I am saying this society will create monsters out of us. Not that we're monsters. Acknowledging truth helps. Acknowledging truth helps to inspire healing. As a people, we need the truth. Another book I suggest, Protecting Our Own by Dr. Catherine Russell. Truth is a very complex dynamic. And there's no data point, vid for real. No one data point that tells the entire story. I don't care what you say. It will never tell the whole story. Well, one data point is not enough for our reality as Black African people in this country. And the fact that the data points tell you, if I'm stuck on this one data point over here, it tells you something about me. Well, look, I promise you, I will have you all do research assignments and start going looking up what different people do, different groups do, different genders do. And guess what? You can point this out to people all day. Oh, women do this and men do this and this one do that and this one do that. And you'll never stop fighting. What's the point? The point is you're trying to make something out of a gender. A racial gender at that. Race and gender, Black men. The same thing with Black men. They get caught on one data point and they want to make something out of Black women. Why? You have a mother. That's not your mother. But I understand. You have a wife, you have a sister. What is in you, Black man, that you want to continue to say this is about Black women? See, Black women do this to Black men. Black women abuse their children this way. Why is that essential? Because that tells you one thing, but it doesn't tell you the whole story. Why is she doing that? And why is he doing that? Again, we can get caught. That is not truth. That is a data point. There's a difference between a data point and an entire narrative. Promise you, people come into counseling every day and they get caught up on data points. He did this and she did that. He did this and she did that. He did this, she did that. And guess what? Those are the ones who fail. Because they got to be right. They got to be right. But essentially, you're going into the way of intervening. Brother Carlos went to the way of being. And I think if we can talk about the way of being, I think we can talk about we have to be disciplined.
Yes.
We have to be regulated. Balance. We have to be able to not get caught up in the media propaganda. That's a way of being. Because understanding that media is being weaponized against us daily, and this is no different. Because if you really take a step back, as I started off, Black men have been killing Black women. They have. And vice versa. And even during historical times, it fluctuates in who was killing who more. Literally. It hasn't always been one way or the other. But then you have to ask the question, why? Because historically, there are times where black women were killing more than black men. But why? But as we navigate this media cycle, I think it's essentially we understand that we stay regulated.
Yes, yes.
And we look at it from all the sides. A way of being is being grounded and also grounded in the understanding that this system is playing games on us. In a way of intervening, we do things like we're doing right now to put out an alternative message, not get caught up in the gender war, although people want to pull you into them. Not get caught up on the race wars, although people want to pull you into them. Not get caught up in the ethnic wars, although people want to pull you into them. Not get, when I say the ethnic wars, I'm talking the FBA versus this, not to get caught up in that. See, it's the same game. Africans did this, Jamaicans did this, Americans did this, this one did more than this. Okay. So now what? You said that this is percentage of Africans did this to African Americans. Now what? What are you going to do about that? Is it even the data the entire story? No. We all understand that there has been a miseducation in a culturalization, if I could say, of us in this society to be in this competitive him against her, those against us, immigrants versus natives type of mentality. Even when we think we talk about healing, well, the data, that's part of hitting up. Truth, to say something is the truth is very interesting, but we really have to be clear that these individual points, again, are not, it's bigger than that. Now let's move on. How do we heal? How do we resolve these issues? Okay, now what? That means that we continue to do men's groups. We continue to reach out to our brothers when they're hurt and pain. And it's not easy. I think one of y'all said something about, like we need to reach out. No, Brother Carlos was saying something. And he's saying, well, like everybody know that the cousin is something, but it's very difficult, especially in society. It's very difficult. That's not to say not to do it, but we can't act like there's no barriers in the way of even trying to get help for your family member. And a lot of us don't even know that sometimes, even if we gotta also know that sometimes we don't even want to call the police. Like people talking about call the police. We afraid of the damn police. We think the police gonna kill our loved one. We don't know whether or not we should call the police because they about to take their life, or is the police gonna take their life for them? So we gotta understand we're in a very complex situation. We gotta stop playing child's games with this. We gotta stop it. We gotta stop it. We gotta stop playing pointing the finger games. I promise you, if you learn any one thing from me, pointing the fingers is never gonna save us. What's gonna save us is pointing the fingers back at ourselves and say, how can I resolve the issue with my brother and sister? Because I have empathy for that sister who said something to me in a certain way. Or maybe it was my sensitivity or whatever it is. But you know what? I'll put boundaries up, but I think it's best that I find a way to form a relationship with this person because everything else is cool about them. Or we have to learn how to be in relationships, and we suck at them. All right, y'all go ahead and close this out.
Well, I'll just say that I do think this was a much needed discussion. It was. I'm glad we were able to come together here in this place, kind of almost impromptu, but with everything that's going on, I think we definitely needed to touch on this and try to understand, you know, how how we are dealing with our own selves to kind of understand what people are going, what people are going through. I mean, I say people, I mean us. I mean us as a community. So I appreciate everyone who chimed in today. I appreciate the brothers here for this, like I said, much needed conversation. And it's not over. It's not done. This is something we're going to have to continue to do. And I encourage the people in this online and in the room to carry these conversations outside of the room and talk with your people. Like I used that word earlier. Like, it's a hard word, but courage. Like, don't feel funny about bringing stuff up. Don't feel alienated. Don't feel ostracized about talking about people getting help, because we all need help.
I thank you for that. Let me ask you a question for y'all go, brothers. Because I like to have us close out on a more of the final. Brother, cuz you got something to say right now before we finish up our wrap ups?
Yeah, if I can. Let me first, grace, gratitude, appreciation for even being in the space and listening to everybody. Um, you touched on a lot of things that I was just been rolling through my head. I want to try to just like implore us all. I think y'all have already said it, but I want to implore anyone who is listening. You know, we have to step away from the one-sidedness and the I call it trauma bonding. I'm not sure if it's appropriate, but the pointing the finger, like you said, like I was disturbed when I saw on another podcast that I do usually watch and I do like appreciate their perspectives on a lot of things. And they just went straight hard into, vilifying, that's not wrong word, but like categorizing these men as non mental health crisis experiencing type of people. So, they call them savage, they call them monsters, and they call them patriarchal, and all of this. I'm just like, if the idea is that black men, black women need to stop harming each other and need to work together, then black men and black women have to stop trying to point the finger and vilify each other at every turn. And on that show, it was an actual psychologist who was saying this ain't got nothing to do with mental health. And I'm like, the judge in the Fairfax case, and there are other information coming from the police reports in the Shreveport case, where they're literally saying we got this long track record of these two individuals who were clearly showing signs of mental health. So when people say this has nothing to do with mental health, that just makes it even harder for people to have a conversation about mental health, let alone seek out the assistance that you get from mental health. And I just hope that, cooler heads begin to prevail and people can understand that aspect of it, because just trying to paint this as a patriarchy, a femicide, a thing that is about man versus woman, that's just, I mean, I get tongue tied, I get flustered when I keep hearing that. I hope it's clearly understood. I'm not saying y'all did it, but that was one of the reasons I was trying to I'm trying to do all this research and look at stuff, because I'm like, we got to stop doing that. That's all I wanted to say.
Appreciate it, because
as my final thought, I just want to reiterate this idea. It's not your fault, maybe, but it's definitely your problem. Find the resources necessary if you need them. If there's couples counseling, there's mediators, there's mental health facilities.
Mm-hmm.
There's medication for those who need it. There's everything from therapy to psychiatry, and there's a gamut. So there's more than enough resources. There's books, there's video, there's a lot of things out there. Let's not make the excuse that we are destined to be traumatized. We don't have to be traumatized. We have a choice and we have resources. And I think it's important that we utilize these resources, really utilize the resources, because information that's in a book that's on the counter and you never pick it up, might as well not have it. You got to read that book. You got to actually do the things. You got to do the exercises and the work to heal yourself, heal your community, and be there for your family and those people that you care about the best that you could be. You know, I'll also say my condolences to the families and the victims and the survivors of not just those publicized tragedies, but just tragedies in general that deal with the topic of mental health within our community. We need to band together, and we need to do something to fix this. We need to utilize our resources and heal ourselves to heal our communities.
Appreciate that.
I like to close out with having we talked about this topic. It's not really talked about often, especially amongst us as Black men, because it's not looked at as a popular thing to speak on, and because it's overlooked. Many issues and problems that spawn from these levels of inconsistencies and just dysfunction in our mental health and on our emotional state, it's just being overlooked. We're kind of taught to just deal with it and go with the flow. So I'm grateful that this discussion got brought up. Hopefully we'll speak more on it, as it is essential for healing for the group and for us to teach the youth, especially our Black boys, that it's okay to vent. You know, it's okay to share how you're feeling about whatever it is that's making you feel sad or angry or depressed. So I feel like there will be a lot of progress made, and then it will be a lot less like violence amongst our youth, and that they're actually getting the attention that they need, because many times, often than not, and also in my experience coming up as a youth here in Baltimore City, you know, sometimes it's glorified to just deal with that and then not just talk about it, because by not talking about it and dealing with it, it also, some people look at it as a badge of honor. Like, this is our initiation, and our rite of passage of being a man, just going through and dealing with these struggles. And I did it on my own, and you know, I'm at the top of the mountain, and yeah, I did it. I didn't need help, you know, and I didn't have a proper guidance, and this is just what I see. So I look forward to speaking more on this subject matter, and for more solutions to be brought forth, not just by the brothers in the group, but also by the individuals that are attending via the chat on YouTube.
I appreciate that, dear brother Parrish, and I appreciate the care. And I want to say, family, I love the Black family, male, man, woman, child, in between. I think it's accurate to note that, as I think I said earlier, rather that we are differently hurting, oppressed, but similarly in different ways. There's similarity, then there's overlap. I think it's essential to note that it requires, as I think I heard Brother Carey says here, in Roland Martin's attempt, and this is what I noticed too, Brother Carey. I think he says it pretty good. He said that's the tragedy of events. And even Roland Martin's attempt at intervening, it reveals the main thing lacking, the removal of our old community culture. In many ways, we have not recovered. And that is so true. And we have to take into consideration everybody. And I will argue that the black man, like the black woman, let me say that, the black man, like the black woman, has not been taken into consideration. And even his brother Fur suggested there's resources out here. We have to understand that even resources and the way that they're situated, there's barriers to those resources. But I do agree that we have to highlight that there are resources. But we also have to understand that we are resources. We have to take our resources to the people. And we have to do it in different ways. And there's ways that society knows, that in social scientists knows, that men are just not going to participate in general. This society is failing men on so many levels. I'm not saying this guy who did this. I think I don't know. I have my own conceptualization. I think this is my conceptualization is that he brought into the myth of the American dream or something. I don't know. I could be off. And somehow that came crashing down and he couldn't handle it. From the accounts, he had a very difficult experience. And it's real heavy. The fact that to say that it's not a mental health crisis, I think I heard this dear sister, I follow her on TikTok, and she said, I didn't know what she was saying the other day, that this is not a mental health crisis. Murder is never a mental, like, what are you talking about? People unalive themselves because of mental health crisis. You don't think they will unalive somebody else? What is wrong with us? I understand we hurt, so we can't even have the empathy to say somebody was hurting, and hurt is a part of the mental health crisis and trauma and stress and anxiety and fear and feeling all the things that you read, brother Carlos. Mental health don't start or stop with any DSM-5 diagnosis. Mental health is something that we walk with every day. And I know as a person with a very stable, strong mind, that is a thin line between being friendly, healthy, and in alignment and snapping the F-U-C-K out. So what I'll do, brothers and sisters, we thank you for joining us for this conversation. I want to know that I just want to also leave that it's about, we have to heal the Black family. We have to heal the Black family, and no easy solutions are going to do it. We have to heal the Black family, and no finger pointing will do it. We have to heal the Black family, and no finger pointing will do it. Although we have to identify things, but we only identify them so that we can work on them, and we have to work on them. And again, he has been oppressed this way, and she has been oppressed that way. I promise you cannot measure who's most oppressed in the society. I don't care who told you that. But as we close out, family, we close out with the we. We walk in my yacht with balanced truth and divine alignment. We rise in discipline. We heal with courage. We give our gifts to the community. Ancestors walk with us. Spirit guides us. Divine guide us. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.
When you claim you have finished, you're going to get your mind back.
Generalized Black woman is doing this and doing this. That is that is irresponsible.
No, when you claim you have finished, you're going to get your mind back.
Showing me,
Black and proud. Claim you have finished, black and proud.
I think that if
when you claim you have finished, you're going to get your mind back.
a page,
what is the status of people with half FDA?
When you claim you have finished, you're going to get your mind back.
That's why I was laughing, because I am
claim you have finished.
I'm not saying the framework doesn't do a thing, but
become a part of it.
We I've been
Embrace
forward
it.
to black men
Become a
being the
part of it.
masters, being
Embrace
in the
it.
control. We must
Become a
have
part
our
of
own.
it.
It's only
Embrace it.
that those to me one of the
Become a
best
part
stories I've
of
ever
it.
heard.
Embrace it. When you claim
How
you're
have
African, you're
mastered
gonna get your mind
that
back.
mental growth takes
Black
place.
and
You've
proud.
been misled by leadership,
Black
for
and
instance,
proud.
that think that you can consume.
When you claim you're African, you're gonna get your mind back. Black and proud. Claim you're African. Black and proud. I'm telling you,